Right. Where's Adam?
Waiting for him.
Alright.
Would you prefer that I turn my camera on?
Yeah.
All right.
Wait, for
I
real?
have to sit straight.
Yeah, bro. What do you mean it's a
I
Zoom
kind of
call?
look like a mess.
What do you mean? That is unprofessional. Unless you're like
Really?
going through poverty or something like that, you better have a camera.
No, bro, what do you mean? I was been taking finals. I don't have time to care about my appearance right now.
Bro, it's Amin Abdurrahman, me.
Oh,
Who
bro,
are you
I
trying to
mean,
holla at here, bro? Like,
All right, let me get my camera on.
who are you trying to?
Let's see.
Yeah.
y'all are some clowns.
Oh, look at you, handsome young fella. Handsome young fella.
Yo, do you like my how do you see it? Oh yeah, you see his poster right here?
Let me see. UMBC? Look at that.
Yeah, it's nice, right?
Reaver Nation. This man ready. This you put it in the background of your Zoom calls?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I know you. Flexing. Sometimes I put things in the background of my Zoom calls to like flex. You know what I mean?
Yeah, bro.
Like sometimes if I'm really trying to like mess with somebody, I'd be like, yeah, like this isn't very important, and then like because I got the map up, so like, I look like smart. But yeah. I
That's
think
funny.
what's the name? Adam's about it. Oh, Adam's about to join. He, let me. Can someone send him a link real quick?
To Adam?
Yeah.
Isn't the group chat?
Yeah. There he is.
Oh,
Salaam
Adam. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.
This is the team.
But y'all said meeting, and I was in the Google Meet for 15 minutes.
Did you not read?
Alaikum salam.
He said, "Come on, y'all." Well, we were already here.
Oh, poor guy. All right. Assalamu alaikum. So this shouldn't take more than an hour. Amin's leading this charge. So Amin, you want to get us started?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So basically today, inshallah, just want to cover really what debate is, and then that's just going to be touched on really because the main focus of this is researching for debate. So let me go ahead and make this full screen for me. So basically, the first thing I wanted to go over was what debate is, and basically this style of debate that we're doing is called parliamentary style debate. And what we're doing is it's a back and forth kind of debate with, you have two teams with 3 people each. And the order of it is proposition first speaker, opposition first speaker, proposition first speaker, or second speaker, opposition second speaker, opposition third speaker, and then proposition third speaker. So proposition usually has the upper hand because they get the first and the last word. And that's how parliamentary style debate goes as it pertains to Mafik and Ilya. And really what debate is you have a topic and you're basically arguing over that topic, but it's not arguing. You're stating 2 points of views on the topic, and you're trying to persuade your judges or your audience why your stance is better and why your stance makes more sense. So yeah, that's really what debate is. So just gonna go straight into researching for debate. The first thing that you have when it comes to researching debate is defining a topic. And the second thing you have is looking into points. And then from there, for the points, you have to look into reasoning and evidence for that. And then afterward, inshallah, we'll go over things that you should say and things that you shouldn't say, and what kinds of things can give you advantages in certain situations and what can give you disadvantages in certain situations. So the first thing is defining a topic. So let me make an example topic.
Are you screen sharing? Or?
No, I'm not.
Oh.
These should be. Okay, so if I had, for example, topic cheese. This is very random, by the way. If that was my topic, cheese should be illegal in the U.S. You'd have the proposition, which is for that topic, right? And they're saying that cheese should be illegal in the U.S. And then you have the opposition, who are then they are against the topic. They're saying that cheese should not be illegal in the U.S. So the first thing you want to do is define this topic. So firstly, you want to define what cheese is, and you really, when you're looking at a topic, you want to come up with the keywords for that topic. So here, I would say cheese would be a keyword, illegal would be a keyword, and US would be a keyword, right? So you define cheese, and then you can define it however you want. You can say this specific cheese, you can say all cheese, all right, and then you can say cheese sauce, you could say cheese, like spray cheese, I don't know, any kind of cheese, right? So that's up to you to define. As a proposition, you get to define the topic however you want, as long as it's within the parameters of debate, of proper debate, and as long as it is debatable. And then the second word you look at is illegal, and you can say illegal, you could say whatever you want it to mean, such as not allowed, or shouldn't be allowed up until a certain point, or like age or something, I don't know. And then US you define as United States, or you can even say it as like some company or something. It doesn't, it's all it says is the US. It doesn't say United States, it says the US. So you could say, let's say there's a company called I don't know, unfriendly servants or something. I'm just coming up with random stuff here. So you could say that that would be the definition for the debate, for the word US. So first thing you want to look at when it comes to topics is define your topic, because once you define your topic, that's what the debate has to stay within. So if I was going to say cheese should be illegal in the US, saying Swiss cheese should not be allowed in the United States, now we have to stay within those parameters, and we can't go with outside of those parameters. You understand what I'm saying so far? Yeah, is it making sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
If I can like rewind, right? So all the debates that I watch, or most of them, right? It centers around, it always starts off. So we're gonna have 3-on-3, right? Okay, even though Fargali is like dipping, I don't know. Anyway, he left, right? Oh, he left. Anyway, so 3-on-3, right? So I go, or person one goes on this team, then person two person one, or if they're proposition or we're opposition. So it's one, and everybody goes with their opening statements, right? Or is that not how it works with this?
What do you mean by opening statements?
So the proposition or start saying this cheese is illegal should be illegal in the United States because XYZ 1 2 3. They go on, drone on for 10 minutes. Time's up. Okay, then the opposition person number one goes and talks about why they're wrong, and doesn't directly refute the person who just spoke, but they hint at it, and of course they're opposing the general idea. And then proposition number two, person speaks 10 minutes. Opposition number two, person speaks 10 minutes. Proposition number 3, person speaks 10 minutes, and opposition number 3 speaks 10 minutes. So, and then begins whatever else, I think. But is that typically how you guys do them at Mafik, or no, is that not how you do it at all?
So you mean have everyone give an opening statement and then have the debate follow afterward?
Yeah.
No, so it's all in one. So your opening statement and then your speech, that's your speech for the debate, and you only get one chance to speak. Except I'll explain this a little bit further afterward, inshallah. There's like different parts that we're having because of it's online. We're gonna, instead of having POIs, which is point of interest, we'll have cross-examination after each speaker. I'm not 100% sure if we'll be adding that, but I'm sure we will.
Like crossfire, where both sides can just interject and do all that stuff.
No, where after a speaker goes, you can ask them that speaker direct questions, and try to throw them off or show why something they said was completely wrong, and then they have the chance to speak about that back to you. But
but in the end, the thing remains the same, that each side has to have the list of arguments, They have to know their topic, and they have to. And the way it starts off is one introduces their argument, other side introduces their argument, and then the debate actually happens. So that's a general
Yeah.
thing, right? And so what we gotta do is research and understand the topic and list it all down, and then keep the notes with us. And then when we actually get to the debate, um, you know, whoever speaks, we all have the same arguments on our paper.
Um,
Okay, right?
Pretty much. I'll go over that a bit more after this part of defining the
Yeah.
topic. So going back to defining the topic, we have our topic is slacktivism. Is herding activism, I think it is.
Yeah.
So we have that. So based on that, if your team is going to be proposition, you want to choose the keywords out of there. And me personally, I would say slacktivism, herding, and activism are the keywords, and you want to figure out exactly what those mean and how you want them to mean in the debate if you're going to be proposition. I'm not sure if proposition and opposition has already been set, but you're going to want to research for both sides of the debate, for proposition and opposition. So when you're researching for the definition, you want to find a definition for slacktivism. You want to find a definition for herding, and you want to find a definition for activism. Say, and it has to make sense. It can't just be random definitions that you throw together from the web. That actually has to make sense. So we could say slacktivism is a negative has a negative impact on activism, that kind of thing. It has to make sense, of course.
So, does does proposition and opposition both have to agree on the definitions before the debate, or how does that
uh,
happen?
the way this works is the proposition will come up, they will speak, they will give their definition, and then the opposition, when their first speaker goes up, they have they have the option of either challenging the definition brought by the proposition, or they can say we agree with the definition. And generally you're going to say that you agree with it as long as it fits within the parameters. The only reason that you would say that you don't agree with it is that if it's either undebatable or it's very one-sided, where the opposition can't has very limited arguments.
Okay.
Yeah, like where they can only make one or two arguments against it, or in the case that it has been sometimes where it's undebatable because they say something about Allah, and you can't debate what Allah says, of course, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But generally, the opposition will say what the first speaker from the opposition will say is, "Salaakhan, my name is this. As the opposition team, we agree with the definition that was brought up by the proposition," and then they'll go into their speech. And I'll go over kind of how each speaker should speak, inshallah, as well. Um, but for now, let's focus on the research, inshallah. So that's defining a topic. Let me go ahead and give an example topic for you guys to define. So let's say. All right. So if I gave you that definition, black cows are better than white cows. It's the first thing that came up to my mind. Just don't ignore it. It's not meant to be racist or anything, but black cows. It's the first thing that came up to my mind. So if I
Okay.
said black cows are better than white cows, how would someone define this? So, Faizan, how would you define this?
You gotta define better. You gotta define better.
Okay, so that's a keyword.
Yeah.
Better is
I
a
mean, I
keyword.
would say, wouldn't you start with like the first part of the sentence, like what makes a cow black? And I mean, I guess you wouldn't have to define cow, but
It
wouldn't
doesn't.
because it
It doesn't have to be that deep. You don't have to say what makes a cow black. You don't have to. You
okay
don't have
because
to. You don't
I don't
have
know
to go
what
that
makes a
deep
cow
into
black.
it. No, but you can say to define it. I'll start you off. So you should define cows. So what does cows mean in this sense?
Like four-legged mammal that is used.
It doesn't have to be that deep. It can just be a cow, the animal, a cow.
Okay.
You don't have to give like a whole definition out of the Merriam-Webster dictionary.
Okay.
It just has to be something that's very understandable to everyone. So
Okay.
now you'd say
For
black.
better.
black cows, which is I'd say dark cows, right? And then better. How would you define better?
You could say like they bring more economic profit than they're more profitable than white cows and easier to maintain, I guess.
Okay, so you can say black cows are better than white cows, and when you say black cows are better than white cows, what you'd say is black cows have more benefits than white cows. That's what you would say if you're going with the way you're saying it, Faizan. And that's a good definition, and that's a very debatable definition as well, because the opposition can come back and say, no, black cows are not more beneficial than white cows, or they're not, they don't have more benefits than white cows, right?
Okay.
And remember, as opposition, you aren't trying to say the exact opposite of what the proposition is saying. You are merely trying to show that what the proposition is saying is not right and is wrong. So the opposition stance wouldn't be white cows are better than black cows, but it would be black cows are not better than white cows. All right. So Adam, how would you like this define this topic? Maybe I should come up with something better.
If you want something more realistic, where the definitions are disagreed upon, I was watching this debate about like 2 weeks ago. I made my dad sit down. I made him watch it with me. It was the proposition was anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and essentially one side was like anything against the state of Israel is anti-Zionism and therefore is anti-Semitism, right? Any act, any criticism, or like not any criticism, but anything like that that impedes the expansion of the state of Israel is, they're trying to like brush over the whole thing with a paintbrush, right? So the opposition, right? Mehdi Hassan, that guy, he was there. He was like, no,
I love him.
you can't. He was like, no, you can't do that. It was like you can't just label everybody as anti-Semitic just for standing against Israeli displacement of the Palestinian people, Israeli you know aggression towards the Palestinian people for the sake of creating the state of Israel, right, or perfecting the state of Israel, right? They want to control the whole thing. So they disagreed on that front. It was a good debate. I took a lot of notes, learned a lot of the arguments. But yeah, they disagreed, and I think in this case, like black cows are better than white cows, right? So I think the key word is better, right? If you could say black cows are better looking, right, or they're fatter, or something like that, right? Because and then you got justify, right? Because black cows, to my eyes distorts the color black and makes the cow look fatter, right? Compared to the color white, right? So you can argue that, right? So uh I think what else?
But I don't think you can objectively prove that. So I
You
don't mean to go
you
deep
can't
into it.
objectively. It's not. I never said it was objective, but it's an
So
argument.
so
So yeah, I'm
yeah
just saying I don't know if that would be like a good thing to debate about.
yeah.
You
It's an
can't
argument.
What
prove
we're
that.
trying to focus on right now is different ways to define a topic. So we don't have to go too deep into it because obviously,
Yeah.
like some of this isn't rational. Some of the definitions we're coming up with, we're just trying to come up with definitions for the actual topic itself. So yeah, like Adam said, there's many different ways you can define that word better, and depending on how that you define that word better, it can change the entire debate. Because you have the opposition who's preparing the opposition will be preparing something for, say, the word better being more beneficial, and you come in and say, well, this is how we define it. Then they're completely thrown off. They have to come up with new points. They have to come up with new refutations for what you're going to say, and they have to come up with like a completely whole new argument. So depending on how you define it, the entire course of the debate can change. And you've had this happen multiple times in the MYDT debates that we've had, where there was one time when the topic was Mars does not need moms, and there's a movie called Mars Needs Moms, I think, and so I think that's where they got the idea for it. But one of the teams took it completely like away from what it was, and they said Mars Bar, the company, does not need moms to like buy their candy and buy their chocolate, and that completely threw off the opposition team. And like it was pretty crazy because they defined it as Mars Bars the company. The opposition team was completely thrown off, and they weren't prepared at all, and they had to go along with the topic since it is debatable. Um, but at the same time, it was debatable, but because they threw off the opposition completely, the debate turned in favor of them. So with this topic, slacktivism is hurting activism. That's going to be difficult to do, because the words slacktivism and activism have very strict definitions. Um, but if you can figure out a way to define that word hurting in a way that would throw off your opposition, then that would turn the tide a lot in your favor. And lastly, on definitions, Alawi, do we know which side is going to be proposition and which side is going to be opposition, or is that being held until later?
I'm gonna text the group chat. I think they're gonna flip a coin.
Okay.
I think it's better if we don't flip a coin. I think it's better if we just decide, because
Well, the reason that they flip a coin is because they want you to prepare for both sides, the proposition and the opposition, and get you because really what you want to do is look at it from both sides. And because if you get into the mindset of proposition and in the mindset of opposition, then you can find loopholes in your own proposition arguments that you can fix as opposition. When you're in that opposition mindset, you will find those loopholes in your own argument as proposition, and the same vice versa. So really getting into both mindsets is a helpful thing to do when you're preparing for a debate. So do you guys have any questions when it comes to defining a topic for debate? Is that Adam? Alawi even? Any questions when it comes to defining a topic?
I think
have a lot of questions actually.
Oh, my fault.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of questions. What is the limit, like, where like you're like? I feel like sometimes, like the question, like if you ask a question, right? Like, why did you cheat on me? Right, for example, and then like your spouse tries to like mess around with the definition of cheating, like that's not going to convince the person. You know what I'm trying to say?
Of course, yeah.
So like, what is the limit of like trying to like shake around the definition and stuff? Because you need to define things, but at the same time, like if you're cheating on me, you're cheating on me. Like we both know what cheating means. Like you kissed that man in front of me, Susan.
Yeah. So when it comes to the
why would you marry Susan to begin with?
Yo, that sounds personal. I don't know what's going on. You need to talk about Halloween.
Which Susan are you looking at, man? All
I
right.
don't want to talk about it. I just want
All right. So obviously there's a certain level of absurdity when it comes to defining a topic, and if you go to absurdity, the judges will definitely not accept. They won't let the debate continue. But of course, there's always the opposition has that chance to say, okay, this definition is absurd. It's not debatable. It doesn't even like come close to the definition of what this debate should be. And so let's say, for your example, if they said the word cheating meant like, why did you cheat on me? And then they say, oh, you mean like cheating on your exam or something. Obviously, we know what that means, and that's a certain level of absurdity that would not be acceptable in like that debate. And the opposition should argue that they either argue undebatable or argue an absurd definition for the debate. So does that answer your question? Or
Yeah. Let me answer my question. It doesn't answer if she cheated on me or not. It answers my question. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. I'm really sad about it. I'm gonna mute myself.
Damn, who did you wrong,
No,
bro?
I'm kidding.
Damn, I thought this was a joke at first.
It's a joke, bro. It's a joke.
All right. So any other questions then, or should we go ahead and move on? All right. So I just realized Provali's not here. That's not good. Um, someone can like let him know that he should join back because this is important stuff. I'm gonna go over really a lot of in detail what we should do even during the debate. So the next thing I want to talk about is looking into points. So let's take this. Do you guys want to go with the cheese should be illegal in the U.S. or black cows are better than white cows? We'll just run with one of those topics.
I think the cheese is better. The cheese one is better.
All right. So we have cheese should be illegal in the U.S., right? And now, as proposition, you're saying yes, cheese should be illegal in the U.S. And let's say the definition for cheese should be illegal in the U.S. is all cheeses should not be allowed to be consumed in the U.S., in the United States of America, right? So if that's our definition, all right, so that's our definition, right? And should is a key word, by the way, in the definition. Remember that you're not saying that it has to be illegal, but that rather it should be illegal. So pay attention to the words in definitions, because one word can change completely the argument that you should be making, or the stance that the judges have on what your stance is. Okay, so now let's come up with some proposition points for this. So excuse me, what are some reasons that all cheeses should not be allowed to be consumed in the United States? Faizan, give me a reason.
You could produce a study that they cause cancer, or that they increase the rates of cancer.
So theoretically, our point number one is that cancer. All right, so that's our theoretical point number one. Adam, how about you? Do you have, how about a second point to go with that?
You could find some professor who will tell you that. What's the thing?
I can come up with another one.
Biggest cause. So then you just say, yeah, cheese cause obesity, so they should. It's not necessary because obesity is not a death. Like, you're not automatically hurting. I mean, but you could suggest that, yeah.
All right, so second point, cheese causes obesity. And I'll give a third point. Third point number three is cheese is mold. Right, so when you're coming up with points for a topic, especially when you're looking at it for the first time, you just want to look, don't go too deep into it. Like what you guys are saying right now is looking for studies or professional things that say this about cheese or that about cheese. And then what I came up with was cheese is mold, right? A well-known fact about cheese. So when you're looking at topics, you just want to come up with things off the top of your head. You don't want to go too deep into it and try to find like the professional studies is all going to be part of your evidence, right? So the point that you're trying to make is your assertion. What you're asserting is, let's take my point, for example, cheese is mold, right? And then your reasoning for cheese is mold being a good point would be mold has multiple, there are many bad types of mold and that can cause food poisoning or things like that. That can cause stomach problems. right? And then your evidence would be study A, study B, study C. This professional says this website says this, right? So when you're looking at those points, you want to just come up with simple things. And then once you have gone through and come up with points that you think are strong just based on simple common knowledge, then you want to go into, okay, now let's look for studies that say different things about um, this topic that we can use for points. And then we can use those studies as evidence for our points. Okay, so cheese causes cancer would be something that you'd find out after researching. And then from that research, you'd find a study says cheese causes cancer. And then you'd say, okay, my point is going to be cheese causes cancer. My reasoning is that there have been studies shown to cause that consuming cheese causes cancer. And then finally, your evidence would be study A, study B, study C, right? And the same thing with the second point, and then the same thing with the third point. Now, let's come up with some opposition points for it. So all cheeses should be allowed to be consumed in the United States. So point one would be, let's say, has many health benefits. So that's something that everyone knows, right? That dairy products, especially cheese, have many health benefits. What's another point that we can come up with, Faizan?
The production of cheese grows the economy.
All right, so economic benefits. That's supposed to be
For the third thing,
Yep,
you
go
could say,
ahead.
for the third thing, you could say that it's in the preference of the majority of Americans that they enjoy eating cheese, and it's it it coincides. You could take the Constitution says life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. They're pursuing their happiness by eating cheese.
All right, so the third point would be that it's enjoyable to eat cheese. All right, so see, these are kind of things that we can come up with just from our common knowledge, right? So we know that cheese has many health benefits, and then we also know that there's many economic benefits to cheese, and then we also know that cheese is enjoyable from our personal experience, right? And then from here, we go into reasoning such as, okay, there's many health benefits, and then these are the health benefits that cheese has, and then the studies proving that. And then the economic benefits, this is what it does for the economy, and then these are the studies that prove it. And then it's enjoyable, and then the reasoning for that would be, I enjoy eating cheese, or many people love to eat cheese. And then you'd have a study
You can
showing,
find like a poll.
yeah, and then you'd have like a study or a poll or some kind of survey saying maybe 64% of people enjoyed cheese versus the 60% of people that didn't enjoy eating cheese, right? That kind of thing. So you want to come up with points that are easily said, easily understood, and then from there you can easily go into them and explain them. So when you're coming up with your points, you want them to be a maximum of 4 to 5 words. You don't want them to be any more than that, because once you go over those 5 words, it goes from being a point to a sentence, and you don't want to use a whole sentence as your point, right? Because then it's something that people have to actually comprehend, rather than they can just look at it and boom, they understand what it says, right? If I say cheese is mold, right, that's easily understood and understandable, as opposed to if I say cheese is a mold that grows on this and that, and it becomes a sentence, and then people actually have to comprehend it more, right? A lot of the time, what the judges tell us is that the judges are told to come into the debate and leave their brains at the door. And what that means is that they're supposed to just leave all their knowledge and everything behind, and they're not supposed to be able to fill in the gaps for you. And you have to fill in all the gaps. So, and another part of that is they're not supposed to try to comprehend what you're saying. You're supposed to let them comprehend it easily. So you want to have 3, 4, 5 word points, and that's it, right? And then usually you want to have 3 to 4 points when it comes to that. So now when it comes to researching for points, a lot of the time you'll have evidence. So this happened to us actually, excuse me, in our past debate tournament, where we found a statistic The topic was American high schools should have a course on Black history, and there was a statistic that we found that said I think 13% of American population is Black, but at the same time the Black population is the third highest in the country. So if I said 13% of our country's population is Black, would you think that that's a lot? You wouldn't, right? But then if I said the third largest, um, the third largest, uh, how do I say this? The third largest ethnicity of our population is the Black community. That sounds like a lot more because it's in the top three percentages, right? So you want to make your statistics and statements sound bigger than they really are and sound more relevant than they really are. And so if I was to find a study saying 75% some of this or that, you might want to say instead might want to say 3/4 or 3/4, right? Because sometimes saying different things sounds bigger than what it really is and makes it your point reinforced more. Right? So that's when you're looking for evidence for points. Okay, so let me come up with one more topic. Yeah, I'm gonna come up with a topic and then I want you guys to come up with points by yourself for it. About um, yes. Upstairs, okay, go. All right. So you have that point right there, right? Dumbbells are more harmful than beneficial, and I mistyped more. All right. So Faizan, give me 3 points of proposition why you would say that dumbbells are more harmful than they are beneficial.
Okay. So that means that agrees with the statement, right? Like it supports the
Yeah.
statement, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, they don't lead to as much. I don't know. They don't lead to as much muscle growth as like using a barbells.
Okay. So how would I
Or is
put
that
that?
too much?
How would I put that in 3 to 4 words?
They don't lead to muscle growth.
You can say it in a better way.
They don't lead to. They don't help you gain strength.
How about not as effective?
Okay.
How does that sound? Because you can say not as effective, right? And then you're that means you're comparing it to something else. And like you said a barbell, right? And so now you're going to compare it to something else. So your point would be not as effective, and then the judges would say not as effective as what? And then when you go into your point, you'd say our first point is that dumbbells are not as effective. Now what this means is that dumbbells are not as effective as other other um, other muscle how do I say this? Other weightlifting tools such as barbells. All right, and that's what I go into. How about a second point for dumbbells are more harmful than beneficial?
Okay. Um. Uh. Let's see. Um. The,
Hey, Assalamu alaikum. I gotta head out for like 15 to 20 minutes. If it ends, can somebody text me so I can just stop the recording?
All right,
okay.
no.
Sure.
Alright.
Okay. So uh they lead to they have negative health benefits.
Health benefits. Okay. Is this a point that you would see reasonable in using again to support your topic?
Like reasonable?
Yeah, does it, like, are there, would you be able to say that it has negative health benefits and uh, come out come out with people agreeing with that?
I mean, I guess not really, but like I just assume that like you could, I don't know, like maybe theoretically you could find like
Theoretically,
some.
you could come up with something really like a crazy and out of this world that would really show that what you're saying is true. But let's go for more reasonable things right now.
Okay. Um um I don't know if this is exactly like reasonable either, but like the production of dumbbells is more harmful to the environment. So maybe like harmful to the environment or destructive to the environment. Okay. And
One more point, and then we'll move on to the opposition.
okay. They don't uh I don't really know, bro, but like I don't know, maybe they don't really uh
How about saying that they're dangerous to, because if you drop one on your foot or something, you
okay,
could say
sure.
that they're dangerous. Um,
Okay.
dangerous. Boom. And then now you have 3 points. Your first point is not as effective, and then when you go into explaining this, you'd say the reasons the reason that dumbbells are not as effective is that, or you'd say dumbbells are not as effective as barbells or other weightlifting tools, right? And then you go into the second point, harmful production methods. What this means is that the ways that dumbbells are produced are very harmful to the environment, and they're definitely not anywhere near being beneficial to the environment. And then the third point is dangerous, and you can say they pose a threat to um, the well-being of humans, such as if you drop one on your foot, well, then what would happen? That kind of thing. All right,
Okay.
Adam, can you go for some opposition points now, saying that dumbbells are not more harmful than beneficial?
So dumbbells are beneficial in that they make it easy for people to get workouts, so easier exercise. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Easier
So,
exercise because they're compact and all that stuff.
you mean like space wise and things like that?
The convenient exercise. Just say that.
How's that? Convenient workout too.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
All
And
right.
then another opposition could be that
Remember, you're not trying to say
they
that
work.
you're not trying to say that dumbbells are more beneficial than harmful. You're just trying to say that they're not more harmful than beneficial. So you can say
So
reasons that they
not
are.
harmful because they're not harmful because the number of people harmed by dumbbells is negligible compared to the number of people benefited by dumbbells.
So how would I put that into 3 to 5 words?
So statistically more benefit than harm. Physical harm. Well, that's the kind of harm we're talking about. So
All right. How's that for 3 words?
and then the third one, um, I'm gonna have to transition to them being more beneficial, right?
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
that, we could say they are reusable. They're reusable. You can use them lots of times.
Okay. So um, you have 3 points. And so these are all things that you can say to the judges that they would understand, right? So you say they're convenient workout tools, meaning they're they're convenient workout tools. I mean, that speaks for itself. And then you have more people benefit, and then you come up with reasons and evidence for that, and then you'd say reusable, and you'd explain how they're reusable. Boom, you have 3 great opposition points right there. All right, Abdurrahman, Salaakhan, welcome back. We went over defining topics and points as well, and we just finished up with points. So basically, when it comes to defining a topic, you want to define the keywords and define those words in a way that it's debatable, but usually you want it to favor towards you, and you only get the chance to define the topic if you're proposition. So usually you're gonna want proposition unless your opposition arguments are better, are more effective, like you're able to come up with better opposition arguments. And then when it comes to points, you want to come up with easy, concise, clear points that are easily understandable. And then you want to come up with reasoning for them and understanding. I don't know if you can see the chat history, but basically we came up with a few different topics, and then we came up with points for them, clear, concise, and then talked about reasoning and evidence. So last thing about points before we move on. When it comes to points, you want to state your assertion. We call it ARE, assertion, reasoning, and evidence. Assertion is the point itself. So taking Faizan's example, not as effective. You want to state your points. You want to say not. Our first point is that they are not as effective. Our second point is that they are harmful production. They have harmful production methods. And our third point is that they are dangerous. And now you'd say, so our first point is that they're not as effective. And when we say not as effective, we are comparing them to barbells. And then you go, et cetera, et cetera. Then you go to your evidence, and then you say, moving on to my second point, the production methods used are harmful and to the environment. And I mean, we can see this in this, and you say some evidence for it, and then you say, which brings us to our third point, which is that they're dangerous, and then end it off, right? And then I'm going to say, inshallah, my second speaker and third speaker will come up, whatever you want to say as your ending. So when it comes to points, that's pretty much how you want to deliver them. All right, so let's go into the last part of the last segment of this inshallah, which is we kind of touched on this earlier, which is basically what to say and what not to say. Things that you can say that will add to your advantage, and things that you shouldn't say ever because they'll give you a disadvantage. So you never want to say, you always want to say things like we talked about earlier, like statistics, where we had the third largest population in America is the Black population, right? Even though it's a small percentage, saying that it's the third largest has a more impact than saying 13% of the population is Black. So there's that. Another thing that really helps sometimes is leaving out words in the other team's argument, because if you leave out certain words, it will go unnoticed, and then the other team, either the other team or the judges, will not notice, and then you have an advantage because they're trying to figure out how to recover from that without realizing that you actually left out a certain keyword. So if I were to say, in all cheeses should not be allowed to be consumed in the United States, and I said cheese causes obesity, right? And then for my reasoning, I would say overconsumption of cheese, or you could say overconsumption of cheese can cause obesity, right? And then as the other team, you'd say, well, they said that consumption of cheese causes obesity, but people can limit themselves in how much they consume cheese, right? And you can leave out that part, overconsumption, and just bring it to consumption, right? And that can go unnoticed, and people will see that, and judges will not notice, or the other team will not notice, and they'll be trying to recover from that. Now, when it comes to things you don't want to say, when it comes certain things such as they are right. So if the other team says, well, this point is not valid because of this, right? They're saying to your team that your point is not valid because of something that happened or that you said, and you don't want to say, and they are right, but you never want to say that the other team is right. Okay, so that's a big no. You don't want to ever say that the other team is right. You can say this may be true, but you don't want to ever say flat out that the other team is right when it comes to debating. Um, I don't think I have much anything else to bring up. If you guys had any questions, do you guys have questions specifically about how the speaker order works and how you should set up your speeches as each speaker?
What do you mean?
So each speaker has a different role, and each speaker will do different things. Like all the speakers aren't just going to basically do the same thing. So the first speaker for both teams, the first speaker for both teams is going to present the arguments for the whole team. So the proposition team will come and will say, as a proposition team, we will define the topic as this. Moving on to our own points. And they go this, these are our points. And then they touch on one or two of the points maybe, because you want to, of course, leave some points for your next speaker to come up and have some content to speak on, right? So maybe you say 1, 2, 3 of the points, and then you leave 1 or 2 points for your next speaker, because remember, they also have to refute the previous speaker before them, so you don't want to give them too much to work with, because then they might go overtime. And the first and second speakers on both teams get 5 minutes, and the third speaker on both teams gets 3 minutes. And the reason for this is that the first 2 speakers on both teams are the ones who bring in all of the reasoning and the evidence and the points and everything. The third speaker's job is just to finalize the refutations and summarize everything that happened in the debate, and show why their team is wrong. So they don't need as much time, but sometimes it is a bit difficult as third speaker to play that role. Do you guys know which speaker you're going to be? Like each of you, do you guys know which roles you're playing?
No idea.
No. Okay. The thing is in like a few weeks, so actually like next weekend. So it would be best to like
We'll
figure that
figure it
right
out. I'm just not gonna give you the intel right now. I'm not gonna give you the.
No, it
We're
would be
not
best
giving.
it would be best to figure it out right now.
Thanks.
Like, don't worry about the intel. Like, we haven't even started preparing yet. We're putting this off way last minute. And I keep telling my team, because it's my sister and my friend, and I keep telling them we have to get this done, and they're just like, yeah, we'll get it done, and so we're not prepared at all.
Well, we had like 2 meetings before this, so we're chilling.
On points and everything. Yeah. Okay.
I think
Inshallah.
the biggest thing is understanding the topic.
Is the what? The definition of the topic?
It's understanding the topic, right?
Yeah.
So we gotta really just research that and put everything on a document and start compiling.
Yeah, we haven't started anything. We have nothing. Like the only thing we know is the order of the speakers.
Personally, I just need like if I can have like a reference to the order and everything, so I don't forget, then like I'll be straight. But I think I got like the PowerPoint like the very from the very first meeting that we had, so I think that explained it and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not looking for your points or anything right now. I just want to know what the order of your speakers is, because that way I can give you guys individualized tips. So like Adam, do you guys have like an order for the speakers yet or not yet?
I think the strongest speakers usually go first, right? So if Faizan or me are gonna be first and second, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, I think we should put Fargali last. No offense,
Well,
Fargali.
what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on this?
Is he here? Is he here?
I don't know if he's listening.
Abdurrahman, what are your thoughts on
Are
it?
you here? Anyway, yeah. So the strongest person goes first, and they present the arguments, and then the second person backs them up and responds to whatever in our case, or whatever the other side had said, right?
Mhm.
So, so reiterates a few points, introduces one or two new points, and also takes a jab back at the opposition, right? Right, but the strongest speaker doesn't go last, right?
Generally, it depends. It depends on the what you want to do. So in my case, the I guess I'm generally regarded as the strongest speaker in my team, just because of like general like the way I generally speak and the way I generally talk. Um, the I'm the second speaker on my team, and the reason for that is because I'm the strongest speaker in the sense that I'm good at refuting points and I'm good at asserting points. So we have our first speaker who is like he's really good with asserting points, right, and coming up with ways to or good ways to assert the points. Um, in my case, usually it's my teammates turn to me whenever they want reputations or things like that, because I'm like quick to come up with reputations, and then in the cross examination, I'm good at cross examining usually as well. So
Would
each
you say
speaker,
that? Would you say that there's like some strategy involved with debating, in that if somebody knows the arguments really well, right? And of course, not all debates are cookie cutter, so it's very hard to strategize like this. But like, you would not mention certain arguments as the first speaker, and then wait for them to mention certain things. That's as if you're a proposition, of course, or you're waiting for them to respond. They respond, and then your response, you put forth points that completely hit
refute,
back
yeah,
and turn the whole thing around. So
yes,
there's that kind of strat, and you intentionally don't mention those points beforehand. So there is some strategy to it, but that's more cookie cutter kind of stuff, and it's hard to plan that and strategize. And I think
yeah. Well, one of the things that we did was we would switch around the speakers. So sometimes I would go as first speaker, especially if we were opposition, and there were like points that needed to be addressed right then. I would be the first speaker, and then my friend would be the second speaker. Um, and then usually my sister, who's our third teammate, right? She's like very good at summarizing and speaking clearly, and in the 3 minutes that you're given, um, and like she's very good at doing that. So um, I feel like I'm just trying to think what the best setup for the first, second, and third speaker for you guys would be. I feel like Abdurrahman would be good as second speaker, to be honest. Um,
would be as good as what? I feel like
would be good as the second speaker. Um, and either Faizan or Adam should be the last speaker. I feel like, but I feel like Adam is best in the first speaker position, but it would also be beneficial to put him in the third speaker position. Honestly, I feel like Adam, the way you like respond to things is just good for most positions. Like you can do any position pretty much. Um, kind of like me as well. I can do any position. Faizan, I feel like
bro, you keep bragging so much. You better come over there to your house.
Faizan, I feel like you'd be best in the second or third speaker position, and Abdurrahman, I feel like would be best in the second speaker position. So I'd say Adam should be first speaker, Abdurrahman should be second speaker, and Faizan should be third speaker.
Yeah, maybe we can consider that.
I feel like that would be a good order for you guys.
We'll have to consult with our director Alawi. So
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah, of course. I'm just giving my own personal feedback. The reasons for this is that Adam, you're good at coming forward and putting down the argument and saying like this is what we're saying, and then these are our points, that kind of thing. And then I feel like Abdurrahman would be good at coming back, and I feel like with your help, Adam, like coming up with the arguments and the refutations, Abdurrahman would be good at firing back and providing more points, and then Faizan would be good at summarizing and then finalizing all arguments and explaining why your side would be stronger. That's just from my point of view, as a somewhat experienced debater. I wouldn't call myself very experienced, but
Yeah, sure.
inshallah.
We'll consider that for sure.
We'll think about it. Alawi said text him. Are we pretty much done?
Yeah, pretty much. So just let me go quickly over the roles of each speaker. So as proposition, the first speaker is going to come up, define the topic, bring up the points that they want to bring up, and then say, okay, now this is, and then at the end of your speech, you're going to say, these are our points that I brought up. And then inshallah, my second speaker will come up, elaborate a bit more, and bring more points. Or you don't even have to end with that. You can just say, Jazakallah khairan for listening, Assalamu alaikum, and then move on. The first speaker of opposition team, their job is to either say we agree with the definition or we disagree with the definition, and we would like to bring forth this definition. Usually you're going to agree with the definition. In our case with this topic, I'm pretty sure we're just going to, either side, both are going to agree on whatever definition comes up. And then the opposition team is going to say, this is why the proposition brought up these points. This is why they're not valid. Now these are our arguments, and our second speaker will come and bring up more or whatever. The second speaker of proposition is going to come and basically do the same thing that the first speaker of opposition did. They're going to say, the opposition brought up this to refute our points. This is why none of those are valid. They brought up their own points, this, and this. This is why this is not valid. And then they're going to touch on whatever points are left and whatever reasoning and assertion and all that is left, and then move on. Then you have the second speaker of the opposition who does the same thing as the second speaker of opposition. They said this about our points. They said this about our refutations to their points. This is why none of it's valid. Finally, this is our points. Boom, done. Then from there, the third speaker of opposition goes after that. So opposition goes twice. And the third speaker of opposition says, this is what's happened in the debate. This is what the proposition said. This is what we said, and this is why the proposition's points are not valid, and this is why our points are valid, and we should win this debate. And then the proposition does the same thing at the end, the third speaker. All right, so is that understandable? Yeah, so of course we won't know which side is proposition and which side is opposition until the actual debate. I'd say prepare for both in definition and in points and refutations, things like that. I have a lot of stuff beforehand. We're going into it blindly. We haven't even looked at the definition yet. We haven't started anything really. So you guys are at an advantage right now. I'm not sure how that'll play out later on, but yeah, inshallah, it'll all be good. I look forward to debating against you guys. So inshallah. All right, and I think we're done. So
okay, thanks for all the information. I mean,
yeah,
thank you,
definitely.
bro.
If you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me up. I can stay on the group if Ali wants me to. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and leave. But if you guys have any questions, I'm pretty sure you all have my number. So
Okay, sure. Thanks,
inshallah.
bro.
All right. And let's see.
All right, so salam, yo.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, bro.